Deep in Illinois' Shawnee National Forest, there's a special valley scene I've been visiting for my Forests of the Midwest photo collection. The last scene, in fact. I'd like to say I saved it for last because it's the best, the most beautiful, and it just may be. But the truth is, it's the most complex, challenging photograph of the collection, and I've been working on it for months. I had 2 days to devote to the project in March, and armed with a promising forecast and a drive to complete the collection, I brought a video camera down into the valley with me to memorialize the occasion. After a 3/4 mile descent, I come to the scene. My interest is photographing this nook of the creek, where it bends around a hollow tree surrounded by a spill of enormous mossy boulders. These are the familiar mise-en-scène, the things of the scene around which, each time I come, I frame my composition. Well, I'm here wrapping up, making my last picture for my collection, Forests of the Midwest. And it's kind of bittersweet. It's a project I've been working on for. I made the first photograph on Thanksgiving Day in 2018. This is the Garden of the Gods Wilderness area in Shawnee National Forest. And the subject matter of the photograph is this hollowed out tree and the creek running through the scene with the boulders in the background. Third time here on the location, second time with the camera. And even though it's just about picture perfect right now, I'll probably come back this evening after it stopped raining, and then once again in the morning. And that's it. I walked around with my camera handheld and made crude strokes at the composition. Though I've identified the elements I want in the scene, I'm still interested in arranging them in a meaningful way. I start with low compositions, but shooting at wide angles in the forest presents a common difficulty. It requires the camera be pointed more upward, putting more of the sky in the frame. Because the sky is so much brighter than the shaded forest scenes, it's an unmerited distraction, and it also introduces unclear artifacts around the tree limbs. I generally do what I can to exclude the sky when I'm shooting in the woods. A waist-high camera placement or higher is typical. Another challenge was the temptation to overemphasize the water just because the long exposure of the trickles looked neat. In this instance, the trickles flowed into a large pool that provided too much negative space and right at an ineffective place at the corner of the frame. I finally pulled myself downstream and was ecstatic to see a compositional shape take form. An X shape emerged that would become the skeleton around which I would compose the photograph. Placing the X slightly off-center and tilted added dimension. The fallen maple branch and the hollow tree arose from the X form, giving them pronounced positions in the frame. I also enjoyed to muse that this was the 10th and final photograph in the series. X marked the spot. I wanted to make one last improvement to the scene. Now we all know I did it. Another problem was the glare on the water. I mounted up a circular polarizing filter to cut it down. I don't always use polarizers. In this cypress swamp image I shared last week, for example, I used the naked, unfiltered light. In that instance, I had the same problem of keeping the sky out of the frame while still wanting to feature the specimen of the cypress tree. I composed the image so that the entire tree was visible in the reflection on the water. This is visual problem solving. If I'd used a polarizer in that case, the reflection wouldn't have been visible. In this photograph, the polarizer appropriately helped remove a distracting bright spot in the corner by revealing the shadowy details beneath the surface of the water. I'm just here enjoying the scene. I've got the camera set up, as you can see. I made a couple shots, and I put it on a time-lapse mode, so I expect the light to get a little more directional. It may even get brighter if the clouds move, but I'm just kind of interested in studying and observing it, so we'll see what the time-lapse looks like. In the time-lapse, you can see the reflections of the clouds moving overhead, creating dramatic dark and light areas on the scene. In these conditions, a strikingly different photograph is possible every few minutes. There was rain that came through and passed, and I rather preferred the light just before and even somewhat during the rain, but I went and hid out of my car like a big chicken, and I've come back down now to watch the light and color change over the course of the evening light, refine my composition just a little bit, make a few tweaks here and there, and then I'll probably just get the camera set up on the tripod and enjoy this time out in the scene while the light changes and make some sporadic photographs here and there. So I'll tell you a little bit about the first time I saw this scene. It was 10 years ago. I was hiking through on the River to River Trail, and if you're not familiar with that trail, it covers the entire ground clear across the southern tip of the state of Illinois. And this place just stuck with me, and I've always intended and wanted to come back and photograph it. And as I was completing this series of photographs of Midwest woodlands, I realized there's so much here that the story is not complete without boulders, rippling creeks, these mossy rocks, dead brown leaves everywhere. So the goal here, and this is so important with being the last photograph, is to, wrap up the collection by including all those elements that the story of Midwest woodland is missing without. Now the rain's picking up a little more, so I'm gonna go up to this cave over here and wait it out under the cave. It's nice and dry under here. We'll see if the light changes. If it doesn't, I'll just grab the shot. The light we have now is nice and even and flat, overcast lighting. I think it suits the scene very well, but my goal would be to have something maybe a little more directional 4 hours before sunset. I think there's a good chance I'll have that, just to get some small shadows and details, a little more presence in the scene. And if we don't get it, I'll probably just sleep in the back of the station wagon tonight, come back in the morning and try again. Well, it only got rainier and darker. While I hiked back to my car, I noticed I could see my breath and hoped for an overnight temperature inversion. Back at the car, I'd left my headlights on and my battery was dead, and my emergency jump starter was also dead. So I spent the night MacGyvering the jump starter up to this power tool battery, and anyway, I fixed the problem, got a little sleep, and woke up to a beautiful, foggy pre-dawn in the forest. Well, we definitely got the temperature inversion that I was hoping for today. Gonna go ahead and hike down to the valley. I don't expect it to be quite this foggy down there. What a beautiful morning, right? For the third time on this trip, I carried my equipment down the foggy, forested hillside. I knew this was the moment I would complete my collection. My tripod fell effortlessly into its well-worn position at the creekside. When the fog roared through the valley, the time had arrived to finally capture the image. In conditions that would only last a few seconds, I made the final adjustments. Months of work and miles of travel by road and foot culminated in this moment, and with a button press, my forest collection would be complete. I took the photograph, then a grateful breath. The only work remaining is to share it with you. I hope you'll consider visiting the online exhibition of Forests of the Midwest at mattramsey.gallery. You are most certainly welcome and invited. Thanks for watching.